Right, how are you doing everybody? Welcome to Russell Heritage Golf. Today we're going to be talking about the right leg in the golf swing. The reason why is that I've had a couple of questions about this subject area recently, not only on Instagram but also on the YouTube comments. And although I feel like it will generally move as a byproduct of the other things we've been talking about, I'm just going to put it into context. What we've done recently on the channel and what I'm going to be doing continuing moving forward is I've been talking very much about essentially sequencing. So we've been talking about the bigger muscles in the golf swing and the sequence as to how these things generally move. So we've kind of talked about the idea that before you get to the conclusion of your backswing position, as you continue to rotate both the hips and the shoulders, you would recenter yourself. And then what we've talked about is that as we transition, we want to go back downward facing and then create a clearance as we release the hands and the arms coming in towards the hit. Good. Key things through these that obviously I've summarized very briefly is that we want to get weight in towards the trail side, but as we are transitioning, which basically means falling, I want the weight to stay in the right hand side as well. If you shift too quickly, you're basically going to get stuck. So what therefore should happen as a consciousness is that you should always feel as though you're trying to turn the pelvis in towards the leg, and you should always feel like it's trying to stay flexed. But what will happen is that inevitably there has to be a recentering motion. So what I'm saying is that as I kind of get back and conclude my backswing, obviously I'm going to recenter myself over the ball. Now as we're doing this, you can basically see the way that if my leg is flexed like so, as I recenter myself, inevitably the leg is going to straighten. But the key thing about this is that I am still actively feeling like I'm pushing weight underneath that leg. So it's not like I'm swinging back and then as I turn, I just fall left this way and the weight shifts on the left. I'm still turning into the leg as I'm recentering. So it's much more kind of this sort of motion that you can see I'm demonstrating here, with the proof that there's very little weight on the left. So even as I'm re-establishing it, you can see the way my right leg straightens because the hip's going further back into the center of my stance, but the weight is still predominantly on the right. Then it can clear and shift in towards the left hand side. So the right leg should be trying to stay flexed in the backswing, but it will inevitably straighten as you recenter, which basically means as you move back into the center, because you're moving further away, that's why it will straighten. But you're still actively putting pressure into it. So again, the reason why it doesn't stay completely flexed like this is because we fall. But even though I've fallen, I'm still pushing pressure in exactly the same move. It's not like I'm falling and straightening my leg and pushing off it and shifting too early left. So hopefully that clears that early backswing up. What would then happen in the transition, which is when we come to that feeling of hitting the ball, is that my pelvis, as I start to initiate a rotation, is going to go in a backward downward facing manner. So you can see my belt buckle starts to point back down towards my lead ankle, and inevitably what will happen from that is my right leg will reintroduce an element of flex. Now if you're a golfer who doesn't introduce an element of flex back in the transition, that's because the pelvis goes more upward, which would have a straightening effect, which is also known as an early hip extension. Those are the key things. The last thing in terms of the hit is obviously then as you start to extend up and you really pull the left hand side back, the right leg should be dragged along for the journey because again there's very little weight on it. So should you think about the right leg, or should it be an effect of a cause of something else? That would be my opinion. So you want to think about trying to keep the leg flexed in the backswing 100%. But it will straighten because of the recentering, and it will go back into a state of flex because you go back into a downward facing manner. It's moving as a byproduct of those conscious thoughts. I wouldn't think about trying to flex your leg in the downswing because it needs to move that way as a byproduct of this. So hopefully that adds any clarity to any questions that some of you have faced as well. I think it's worth talking about these things so that we understand the differences between right and wrong essentially, which is really, really important. And like I say, yeah, hopefully it adds a bit of clarity for those that were slightly uncertain. Any questions that you've got, obviously you can post them to me on Instagram. You can also send them in the YouTube comments box below. Keep practicing, keep following this sort of structured program because it's helping a lot of the people that I'm seeing online for lessons, and 100% it will help you guys as well. Always appreciate one of those. Remember, it's absolutely free to subscribe. Press the little bell icon, and I'll catch up with you guys again soon.